Hi everyone, Anna here from Anaya Science Switch, and today we're going to be looking at an overview of Ayurveda from the land of India. And I studied this for a year back in 2009, and this is a presentation just to make a brief overview with tools to help you understand how to use it for your own personal wellness. So Ayurveda is mostly about diet and lifestyle, and how to read your own constitution and then compare that with diet and lifestyle information that you can use to balance your internal elements, like an internal alchemical system. And I also do Chinese medicine, and sometimes people ask me, what's the difference between Ayurveda and Chinese medicine? They're both very effective ancient systems based on observations of nature, but I often just say it's easiest to understand. One's like Mac and one's like Windows, and it's just up to your preference which system you use. So Ayurveda and Doshas. We're going to be looking at Doshas, the science inside the old knowledge, and made this in 220 for a workshop for some people. Okay, so what is Ayurveda? So it actually means the science of life. Ayur is life, Veda is the sciences. The Ayurvedic medicine has a rich history. Originally shared as an oral tradition, Ayurveda was recorded more than 5,000 years ago in Sanskrit, and the four sacred texts called the Vedas. It's the Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sam Veda, and Atharva Veda. Oops. So Ayurvedic theory states that all areas of life impact one's health, so it follows that the Vedas cover a wide variety of topics, including health and healthcare techniques, but also astrology, spirituality, government, politics, art, and human behavior. So when you think Ayurveda, it's also about other aspects of life, not just the health and wellness medically, because health and wellness is also to do with our jobs and our lifestyles and our belief systems and all of those daily activities. So just like Chinese medicine, with Taoism, Ayurveda is based on the observation of natural phenomena. So as above, so below, as without, so within, to understand that in a human universe as a microcosm of the macrocosm, which is the external universe and our surroundings. External natural forces exist within us. So that's basically the same as Chinese medicine. It's showing that if you observe your external world, which is happening in nature, and you get to understand all of the cycles that occur naturally in nature, you can apply that directly to your internal landscape, which is a microcosmic expression of what's happening in your external world. So this is a chart showing how our consciousness transforms from a non-material state into a more material expression. Sankaya, the journey of consciousness. So it's all between these two opposites, which is kind of similar to the yin-yang theory. Purusha is unmanifested, formless, passive, beyond attributes. Cause and effect, space and time, Purusha is pure existence. And Prakriti is the creative force of action, the source of form, manifestation, attributes, and nature. You've got this creative force combining itself with unmanifested, formless, essentially before there was anything. And then that goes down to this second drop down. You can imagine it's becoming a little bit more material, called cosmic intelligence. And then that filters down to present the ego. the sense of I am. So that's more beginning a personality. And then that splits 3 ways into Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. And Sattva is stability, it is awakening, pure aspect, essence, and light. Rajas is dynamic movement, and Tamas is static, it is potential energy, inertia, and darkness. So there's these 3 forces that are always acting and interchanging, and we have those forces within us, which we'll go into. So in the Sattva category, we've got the 5 sense faculties: hearing, touch, vision, taste, and smell. We've got 5 faculties of actions: speech, grasping, walking, procreation, elimination. And then the mind, the faculty of cognition and action. And then Rajas in the middle is the dynamic movement. So that's almost like the force that gets everything else moving. And then Tamas is broken down into sound, touch, form, taste, and odor. And those are attributed to the 5 elements. So sound is the guna, means quality or characteristic. So sound is the quality of the ether, the space, akasha. It's not air, it's more like space. It's emptier than space. Touch is the quality of air. Form is the quality of fire. Taste is the quality of water. Odor is the quality of earth. So this is looking at them more close up, those 3 gunas, qualities, which was Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. So in the human body and mind and emotions, we present in these different states, changing all the time. Sattva's in the middle because we always want to be going towards a sattvic state, which is a peaceful state. It's an equilibrium. And then we have these, either side of the equilibrium, these 2 balancing acts. We don't want to be too much of this. We don't want to be too much of that. We want to be somewhere in between. So it's kind of like 2 extremes. So tamas, in the extreme, if you're being more tamasic, you're going to experience a dull mind. Your awareness will be obscured. The power will be veiled. Apathetic, lazy, sluggish, foggy, heavy, prone to depression. Fear and avoidance allows for rest and sleep, so you're sleeping more often. Hinders self-injury, self-inquiry and meditation. So you're going to be kind of just avoiding life in general and being slow and depressed and sleepy and not participating. And then the Rajas, on the opposite, is an energetic mind, but that's actually distorting awareness. Your mind's too active. You're thinking and imagining and creating illusions. Projecting the power too much. Busy, passionate, aggressive, frustrated, excited, prone to anxiety. So yeah, again, the mind is just too active. You're trying to do too many things and you're getting frustrated in the process. Desire, but also anxiety, allows for motivation, but hinders self-inquiry and meditation. So both of those, you're too busy in your mind, essentially. One's mind that's a bit shut down, one's too busy, active, and neither of those spaces are in the middle, which is the self-observation. And so in the Sattva, which is the middle way, you're clear and calm of mind. Your awareness is becoming revealed. You can start being more aware, expansion of awareness. Your powers are then being revealed. You're easygoing, you're balanced, peaceful, harmonious, and content. There's, truth and beingness. So you're able to speak your truth, be your truth. Truth is the middle way, the Tao, and you're just able to be. allowing for discernment, so you're able to process information and choose wisely, and facilitates self-inquiry and meditation. So in that state, you're actually more prone to want to sit in your stillness and investigate yourself. You're not avoiding yourself. So in Ayurveda, there's 5 elements recognized, as we've discussed before, and those get broken down into the doshas, which are the constitutional characteristics that make us all up. So the 5 elements is ether, so that's like space, akasha, water, fire, earth, and air. And this is a breakdown of the observable natural phenomenon and their processes, elements which compose the entire universe. So here's a good way to start understanding observation of nature. This is obviously an ocean. There's some flat land here. There's a lake. There's some mountains, some clouds, and a smaller waterway going from the mountains out into the ocean. So it's essentially the fire, the sun, is acting upon the water element, and that is causing evaporation and steam to rise, which is going up to intermingle with the air, which creates a microclimate, and then that turns to water as it cools down. The particles cool down, and then it returns to the ocean again. And then over here, another microclimate is the same, except it's happening with the mountains, and therefore the rain is actually going into the mountain streams from the lake, and then that's returning to the ocean. So there's kind of like a cycle within a cycle happening there. So if you start applying that kind of thought process to your internal cycles, because you are made of these elements, different differentiation of elemental qualities, you'll know that there's heat present in your body that causes the body to warm up and start causing chemical changes, which, you know, the steam and the evaporation is like a chemical state change under pressure, where elements turn into different elements. So obviously the water element turned into the air element, which turns into the water element under the effect of the fire element. So before we get into the doshas, we're going to go through the 20 gunas. These are the qualities that those 5 elements possess. So it's split up into opposites. So this kind of like a yin-yang polarity here. Heavy balances light, slow balances sharp, cold balances hot, oily balances dry, smooth balances rough, dense balances liquid, static balances mobile, gross balances subtle, gross is like large, and cloudy balances clear. The different elements possess different qualities or characteristics, and these characteristics change in cycles to balance themselves in the changing conditions. Internal and external environments are in a constant state of change. For example, the weather is external, the diet, mind, emotions are internal, but the external weather can have an influence upon what food we're eating that's growing in that weather system. It affects our mind. If it's raining a lot, you might get more sad or staying inside more. And then obviously that's different states of weather are going to have an effect on the emotions. But it's not just weather, it's any external influence. So it could be someone that you've just talked to and they say some stuff that you emotionally react to. And then that creates an internal condition in your body. So gunas, these qualities here, they're used in the diet and lifestyle practices to bring the balance and harmony. So we're always looking for balance. So if you're presenting with a lot of lightness, we want to add something heavy in. If you're presenting with a lot of dryness, we want to add something oily in, either your daily routine or your diet or herbs. So this is breaking it down a little bit more. It'll be easier I'll attach the PowerPoint so you can like go back and refer. So I won't go through it all. Heavy, we've got heavy and light, and then what is heavy and light doing? Clear and sticky, subtle, gross. On that goes. So I can't read that one very well because I've got my screen too small. So clear and sticky. Clear, it pacifies and creates clarity, but in excess creates isolation and diversion. Sticky, cohesiveness in mind and body. So that means it's sort of sticking things together. But in excess leads to attachment and lack of clarity. So that's talking about more mental aspects. And then dense and liquid promotes solidity, because dense is more compacted, density and strength. But in excess leads to build-up, because if there's more compacted, dense things, it can lead to a blockage. And then balancing dense is liquid. So you've gone from a more dense, solidified thing to something that's able to move and flow like a liquid. So it promotes salivation, compassion, and cohesion, because liquid obviously can bind things together. But in excess leads to water retention. So you've got water overflowing, but it can't sort of escape naturally, possibly through sweating, urination, that kind of thing. So I won't go into all of those and read about them, the PowerPoint. So we're going to move into constitution and dosha. The constitution is essentially what you're born with. You've got a mother and a father, and they mix their DNA together, and then that produces a third creation, which is you. So you're a blend of your mother's constitution and your father's constitution, and whatever doshas they have in balance or out of balance, you're going to get this optimal blend of that, and that's where you're getting your characteristics from, because obviously we have physical characteristics, we look like our parents, mental characteristics, we kind of may have their good or bad mindset habits, emotions as well. So the constitution is made out of what we call doshas, which are these ways of balance. We've got three: Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. So you can see here there's these symbols. So Vata has the qualities of ether and air in a blend together. Pitta has the qualities of fire and water together in a blend. And then Kapha has the qualities of earth and water together in a blend. So Kapha and Pitta are sharing the water element. So these doshas, everyone has all three. You don't just have one, you have all three, but there might be different percentages. To be tridoshic means you would have an equal balance of Vata, Pitta, and Kapha elements, which can be seen in your physical, mental, and emotional characteristics. Or you might be maybe predominantly Vata, which means you're going to have more of these airy, etheric kind of qualities presenting in your mind, body, and emotions. Or you might be more Pitta, means you're a bit more fiery. Or you might be more Kapha, which means you're a bit more earthy and dense, because the qualities, the Gunas that relate to the earth are about solid, dense. And when you think about when you blend water and earth, you'll often get mud. So the Kapha type is a lot heavier and a lot sort of stickier, prone to those kind of muddiness, whereas Vata is prone to airiness and floating up and not being connected to the body. So this is more body, slow, solid, stable. Vata's, because air has got wind, so wind just moves fast. So Vata people can be fast and very ungrounded. And then Pitta, it always needs to have this balance of the fire and water. And if there's not enough water, Pitta people can overheat and get quite hot and bothered and angry. So there's always the balanced version of the dosha and then the imbalance. And we use both of those informations to be able to choose what diet and lifestyle therapies to apply. So just looking at it from a different chart. So dosha means movement, energies, diseases, or faults. And then vata has got the ether and the air. Pitta has got the fire and the water. And kapha has got the earth and the water. And that's combining 5 elements into 3 doshas. So you're born as a unique combination of your mother, your father, and then you. And that's coming from the DNA memory blueprint, and also from what is happening in their external and internal world at the time that you were conceived. So these are energetic principles that govern the physiological and, well, I should say psychological functions of the body. And there's obviously 3 combinations of the 5 elements, and health exists when there's a balance between all these doshas. So as I said, you might be kapha predominant, but you've still got pitta and vata. Finding out the percentages first is then how you can determine what your normal is, because your normal was given to you at birth. So here's a chart showing the balances of, this is like a tridoshic balance where there's equal pitta, vata, and kapha. But then here's a person that has predominance of pitta, 50%, and then they've got a portion of vata and a portion of kapha. So to know that will be really important for them, to know that their pitta is the most important one to balance, and then if that is balanced, then these 2 will be more easily balanced. So we've got here the 20 qualities, the 5 elements, and the 3 doshas. So it's just a repeat of what we've gone through before. So we'll start on this side. So the vata is made of the elements of air and ether, and the qualities, the gunas, the qualities, and this 20 qualities that belong to vata is cold, dry, light, subtle, clear, flowing, hard, rough, and mobile. So why is those qualities, those gunas, why are they attributed to vata? It's because of the elements. Because up in the ether, up in space, and up in the air, it can be cold, it can be dry. It's light because it's less substantial than matter. It's subtle, which means it's more invisible. Clear, flowing, I mean the wind is flowing, the cosmos is flowing. There's a nature of being hard. You can think about wind. Wind can be soft, but it can also be very forceful. Rough. Rough is also relating to dryness. You can think about it in physiology. Your skin can, when it goes dry, it can feel rough. So there's rough body, and there's also rough type foods. And mobile, obviously, it's moving. So pitta is the balance of the fire and water. So the pitta qualities, the gunas, is hot because fire is hot, light because fire is essentially gaseous, flowing like fire, clear because of the gassiness, and because of the wateriness, because water is also clear, mobile because both of those fire and water elements are always moving, and sharp. So sharp could be when you think about a pitta type personality, because they're very fiery, they can be quite direct and sharp and opinionated in a very direct way because their mind is sharp. So the pitta mind is quite a sharp, inquisitive mind. They like to know how things work. Whereas the vata mind, it's a bit more etheric, a bit more dreamy, a bit more up in the clouds. And so then the Kapha dosha is the mixture of the earth and the water, and this has the guna qualities of cold, wet, heavy, gross, which means large, dull, dense, static, which is not moving, soft, smooth, and cloudy. So in the Kapha person, because there's an aspect of gross, the Kapha bone type is generally bigger, a bit more dense, a bit more solid bones, which then will make the whole physiological structure a bit more heavy. And because there's a combination of earth and water, as I said before, when those two join together, it can make mud in nature. So that is making a heavy aspect as well. And then Kapha, because water is involved, there's cold. So here's cold in relationship to the air and the ether, and then this is cold more in relationship with water. So to balance our doshas, we first want to learn what is normal, and then we learn what is not normal, and then we compare the two readings and we choose ways to bring the not normal back to the normal. So the normal balance, we call it prakruti. And the term prakruti is a Sanskrit word that literally means nature or basic trait. The combination of vata, pitta, and kapha, which is present in the individual at the time of conception, is maintained throughout the lifetime. So if you can maintain your prakruti throughout your lifetime without too many imbalances, you're going to have a longer, more healthy life. Different persons that can have different combinations of vata, pitta, kapha as their basic constitution of prakruti. That's why two people react differently when exposed to a similar situation. Thus, according to Ayurveda, everyone is unique and every one of them has a distinct body constitution which is totally different from each other. So that's why one medicine won't work for everyone. It only, it's a very individual, tailored process with holistic medicine where we take into account your mind, your body, your spirit in the moment compared to what your prakruti normal balance should be based on all of this ancient information as a measuring scale. And then you will be prescribed or advised to do certain diet and lifestyle activities that will be different from your brother or sister, even though they've come from the same parents, because we're all different. So looking at the imbalance, it's called vikruti, which is the discrepancy that makes our body different from a normal, healthy constitution. In simple terms, it's the abnormal or the diseased state. So when the doshas of the body are not in perfect equilibrium in their own personal constitution, it can be termed as the stage of vikruti. So it's when your elements get out of balance, which can be because of your diet, your lifestyle, the external environment, your thoughts, what you've been watching on TV, what you've been talking about on the phone. Everything has an effect on us. Any kind of abnormality or vikruti in the body can lead to complications in the normal regulation of body functions and thus leads to any serious complication or disease. So you want to catch the imbalance as soon as possible to recorrect it. Otherwise, there's going to be a progression and then things get a little bit harder to fix once they're becoming chronic. So we're going to just look at the doshas a little bit more in depth in terms of the physical features, the sensitivities, the body functions, sleep cycles, personal and mental activity. I've pulled this off someone's website because it's very good. So vata, reminding us that it's made of the elements of wind and space. Air is wind. And the vata dosha governs all bodily movement. So the physical features of a more vata type person, their body will be thin and they have a light frame and a wiry structure. Long angular features, so quite bony. small dark eyes that are usually dark brown in color, small mouth and thin lips, irregular teeth. That means like you could have buck teeth, or the teeth are not quite growing straight, receding gums, scoliosis of the spine, so that's a spinal curvature abnormality, thin, coarse, dry hair that is often kinky, so a little bit wavy, and the skin is usually dark, so they might have not a pale skin tone, but more of a dark skin tone, and the skin's prone to dryness because of this dryness of this climatic condition of those elements governing. Their sensitivity, they're extremely sensitive to cold because this element is producing a cold environment, so they're naturally already cold, so if there's extra cold on top, they're going to be really not wanting to be in that place. Also sensitive to the wind because of the air element and the dry weather. So then they're often going to present with the cold extremities such as hands, feet and nose. So what would balance a Vata person in that kind of situation is avoiding the wind and staying warm and wearing shoes. So the body functions, this is talking about what they're prone to as an imbalance: erratic appetite and irregular digestion that is easily disturbed. Dryness in the form of constipation, irregular menstrual cycle with acute premenstrual pain, and emotional mood swings. So erraticness is generally talking about the characteristic of the wind, because wind is erratic. Wind can be flowing one direction in 1 minute and then it's changed and it's gone somewhere else. So if you observe the wind in nature and you apply that to the Vata characteristics, you can know that you've got to make sure you're not creating an erratic lifestyle. So Vata people really benefit from having a more disciplined, organized lifestyle to balance that erratic tendency. And having that erratic tendency is often going to present in these mood swings. Sleep cycles, light and restless, and often insomnia. And the personality and mental activity, the mind is very active because obviously the air and the ether is above, it's way up in the heavens. So that's the mind being up away with the clouds. Vatas are creative, artistic people with imaginative ideas that can change direction as often as the wind. So yeah, lots of stuff going up here, ideas, thoughts, wow, 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 all the time, but unable to balance it with the grounding. And changing direction as often as the wind. They'll have an idea, but the idea might never actually come to fruition because they've already changed their mind. Open and tolerant of others. So Vata people are very personable. Sensitive natures and can retreat when anxious or emotionally insecure. Hyperactive and have multiple projects going on at one time, which they may have trouble finishing. Energetic but sporadic. They have restless minds. So they've got lots of stuff going on, and then because it's all too mental, all too exciting, talking about it to everyone, and then push, you've run out of steam and you don't have enough energy or motivation to actually complete it in the physical realm. So just a reminder of the characteristics: cold, dry, light, swift, mobile, irregular, rough. So these should all be sought to balance. So what balances cold is heat, what balances dry is oily, what balances light is heavy, what balances swift is slow, what balances mobile is static, what balances irregular is regular, and what balances rough is smooth. So to balance these characteristics in Vata, you could choose foods that have the opposite quality. and we'll get into showing that all of that's already available as a dictionary, encyclopedia. So Pitta is the fire and the water element. Pitta dosha governs the transformation of the food, because the Pitta is all about the fire, and we have, I'll get into it in another slide, but we have in our stomach, our digestive system, we have what's called the digestive fire. And obviously in our stomach, we have stomach acid. We put food in there and the stomach acid breaks down the food. And so that's a hot environment. And so that always needs to be like a fire with lots of wood on it all the time that's continuously able to digest. So the physical features of Pitta, they're hot in nature with a robust circulation that leads to ruddy colouring and warm extremities. This is a warm person, prone to getting too hot. Medium-sized build and moderate muscle tone. So they're like me, I've got long, skinny Vata limbs, but a Pitta person, there'll be a bit more muscles going on, good muscle tone. Bigger muscles, you know. The skin is fair, so it's lighter in colour, warm, reddish, soft and moist, many freckles and moles with a tendency towards rashes or acne. Medium-sized eyes which are light in colour, so maybe like blue-eyed people. Soft, thin, light-coloured or reddish hair that may turn grey or bald easily. So this type of looking person, they're going to be more prone to heat flashes in their skin, and the acne, it's maybe because there's too much heat in the body, and then also losing the hair. You lose your hair from having too much heat rising up and cooking it off, and then a tendency to the red-headedness, so the more ginger type person, because obviously that colour is related to the colours of fire. Sensitivity, they're burning easily in the sun, so they're sensitive to the heat and humidity, which is, you know, a quality of heat. The body function, prone to inflammation of muscles and tissues, especially in the shoulders and the middle back where they accumulate stress. Robust, healthy appetite, and they become irritable if they skip a meal. That's called being hangry. And best digestion of all the three doshas. So the Pitta constitution person, actually their strength is their digestion, but also their weakness can be their digestion, because having such a strong digestion, you can literally eat anything you want and nothing ever happens. But then there'll be a certain point where you might take it a little bit too far, like you're having way too much coffee or chili or, you know, stuff that's not good for you because you just can handle it, and then one day things start going wrong. So Pitta people do have to be careful with that. The women have regular menstrual cycles with heavy bleeding and premenstrual stress. So the heavy bleeding is probably due to the heat aspect, because the heat makes the blood flow faster. Sleep cycles are light but moderately good sleep, and often overheat during the sleep because they're burning the candle at both ends. So they've generally got a very strong constitution, but as I just said, they might take it too far because they're always got a lot of, you know, fiery energy. Personality and mental activity, they're very intelligent, powerful and clear, with a focused mind that makes it easy for them to succeed. Aggressive and competitive in nature, workaholics and overly ambitious, dynamic personalities and great conversationalists. So because Pitta has one of the guna qualities of sharp, which I said before, they have a very sharp, focused, pointed mind. They like the kind of person that, you know, will get the toaster and take it apart and figure out how that works, because they just need to know. So they're very wanting to learn a lot all the time. So the elemental characteristics of Pitta that always are looked to balance: So hot, oily, light, liquid, mobile, sharp, soft and smooth. So you would choose the opposite of that if you need to bring the Pitta back into alignment. But you might not need to bring it into alignment because it might be fine. And then the Kapha is water and earth. And don't know why that Pitta thing's there. Get rid of that. Physical features. Individuals of a Kapha nature have a predominance of the water element, which is reflected in their full, soft features and thick, cool, moist skin. Tend to have a stocky build, a large frame, well-lubricated joints, and a well-developed chest. Have a tendency to be overweight. Thick, soft, oily hair that is often wavy and plentiful. The eyes are usually large and attractive, blue or light brown in color with long, thick lashes. They tend to have large, round faces with full lips and big white teeth. So this dosha, that's going to be the bigger person in general. So their features are going to be a little bit bigger to match the physical body structure size. So it's saying, you know, the eyes are bigger, the teeth are bigger, the eyelashes are bigger, everything's kind of a bit bigger to match that stockier build. And because of the water element, they're going to have more moist skin, more lush hair. So they're really well hydrated. And then, you know, going back to the Pitta type person, their body features are, because there's a lot of fire element, they can be quite pointy. They've got more pointy ears, but more like sort of studious pointy eyes. Their teeth might be a little bit pointy. Their nose might be a bit pointy. And then Kaphas are more softened kind of physical features because of the water. And it's just making everything a bit more round. And so their sensitivity, they're intolerant of the cold and the damp. So water is cold. Earth, when you mix it with water, produces dampness. And so that's really going to aggravate the Kapha dosha. It's going to, because they're already watery and earthy. And if you add extra water and earth to them, it's going to make them have too much of those elements. So the bodily functions, tendency towards catching the cold, congestion, like sinus congestion, lung congestion, and allergies. The appetite is steady with a slow but regular bowel movement and minimal urination. Kapha women tend to have regular cycles of the period with little pain and a minimum of premenstrual depression. So sleep cycles, Kapha types are heavy sleepers, but sometimes they like to sleep too much. So the Kapha is more prone to that Rajasic type Guna, which is the opposite of the Raja. What did I just say? Kapha people are more prone to the Tamasic, and Pitta people are more prone to the Rajasic. So that's they kind of like two imbalanced things happening. Personality and mental activity. They're easygoing, fun, loving, and patient. They speak and move slowly and have a grounded disposition that is not easily shaken. Their calm and reliable nature makes them ideal managers and caretakers. They're kind of like, yeah, the more balanced, big teddy bear type person that you just feel very safe and strong with. They're very stable. Earth is stable, unless there's an earthquake. Elemental characteristics: cool, wet, oily, heavy, dense, static, stable. So choosing things to balance those if Kapha gets out of balance. So looking at the body types, so the Vata person, thin-boned, prominent joints, slim frame, irregular features, and body proportions. So that could mean, like for me, I've got not really short, but I've got a short torso and I've got longer legs. So I've sat next to a friend before who's quite a lot shorter than me. And when we sit on the same level seat, she's the same height as me because her torso is actually longer and she's more Pitta but she's just a short stature. So thinner skin that's rough and dry. Their veins are visible, tanned complexion, smaller eyes, can be tall or short. Pitta is the medium build, more balanced proportionally with a good muscle tone. Complexion is coppery yellow, reddish or fair. Pointy teeth, sharp eyes, freckled skin, blonde or reddish. And then the Kapha type is bigger boned, taller, easier to carry excess weight, thicker skin, fair, bright complexion, big eyes and eyelashes with white, very white eye whites, and lustrous wavy hair. So these three doshas, they manage regions of the organ systems of the body. And as we had, this is all pretty much like a flip. So, the kapha was the earth and the water, so that's actually more of the down on the ground. And then the vata was the air and ether up in the air. But in the body, they've actually flipped regions. Pitta stays in the middle. So the kapha region is ruling the sinuses, the nostrils, throat, the lungs, and the airways. So that's why kapha people are more prone to lung congestion and sinus congestion, because when you think about what happens in that situation, producing a lot of phlegm and snot and congealed thick water, and that's essentially like an earth and a water stickiness quality. And then the pitta is ruling the digestion, so that's involving the organs of the liver, the spleen, the gallbladder, the stomach. The duodenum is what joins the stomach onto the top of the intestine, and then the pancreas is the endocrine organ for the sugars. And then lastly, down the bottom, we've got vata is ruling the small intestines and the large intestine. So it's also ruling the reproductive organs in the bladder, which they haven't put on this chart. So vata people are more prone to lower region problems, so digestion, but more on the elimination aspect of the digestion, maybe urinary tract infections, maybe period problems or reproductive problems. And then the pitta person can be, they can get their digestion out of whack. Generally, it's from too much heat affecting, which heats the pitta, throws the fire and water balance out, or it can also be from too much cold. Like if you're eating too much cold food, it can throw out the fire and water balance, just like in my presentation on the tongue reading with yin yang Chinese medicine, cold and heat. So that's why in Ayurveda a lot of focus is put on the digestion and the foods as the medicine, because if you balance the middle, you'll actually be able to balance the above and below. Because what happens here, if you have some digestive imbalances, you're not going to be able to cook your food properly. Either the digestive fire is too hot or it's too cold. And so you can imagine a real fire. Imagine that there's a real fire and it's cooking wood. And if you get some really nice old dry wood and you put it on the fire, that's a good temperature, that wood will last quite a long time. It'll burn and it will turn to ash and it will cook at an appropriate speed to the size of the fire. If the fire is way too big, it's a raging fire, like a bushfire, an out of control fire. The fire is too hot. You put wood on there, gone. Wood, gone. It's eating the fire too fast. So whatever you put in your digestive system, if your fire is too hot, you've already sucked it up, and then you're still hungry. You need more and more and more, because your fire is just unable to calm down. It's consuming too much. And then on the opposite end of that scale, if the fire is too small, because you've put, it was a normal fire to start with, and then you got some wood, but it was still a little bit damp. You didn't dry the wood out properly, and you put the wood on the fire. It's struggling to dry it out because it's not dry, and then it starts using up its energy. The fire starts getting smaller as it struggles to burn the damp wood, and also a lot of smoke is released, and that smoke you could see as being a toxic production, and that's what happens in the body if the fire is not strong enough to consume the food. You will only consume a bit of the food, and then there'll be a side effect, which is a toxic outflow, and those toxins need to be processed by the body. And what happens in that kind of situation is that the toxins produced by undigested food, they often have a tendency to sink down, and that's where you'll get intestinal blockages and indigestion. And sometimes they can float upwards and then combine in the lungs and congest the lungs. So the above and the below is often coming from an imbalanced digestive system. So that's why Ayurveda is always focused on food, herbs. So as I just described, the Agni, which Agni means fire, and then we have different Agnis in Ayurveda. One of them is the digestive fire. You can see here, as I described with the wood, you've got a fire, you've got, it's sitting on some wood there, and then it's cooking the soup. So that's what your stomach and your digestive organs do. They cook food, and you can't cook food in a cold oven. You can't bake a cake in a cold oven. You also can't bake a cake without proper ingredients. You need milk and eggs and flour and whatever goes in, but you're going to need ingredients, and you're going to need warmth to make a product, which is called energy. And so in terms of body temperature, we're meant to be 36.7 degrees Celsius. So that's actually quite warm. And if this oven cools down too much, you can't cook anything, you can't digest anything. You're going to start producing toxins. So you need to preserve your Agni by avoiding too much cold food and too much raw food. So you can always have it, I mean cold, like cold from the fridge, like cold like ice, like cold like ice cream. Raw food, obviously salads are really good, but you've got to have it in a balance with some cooked food. Otherwise, if you have too much of that, you're eating too much cold-natured food, too much vata-natured food, and you're going to throw the system out of whack. And obviously in the stomach, there is a stomach acid pH that needs to be balanced. And that pH, interestingly, is ruled by the hormones that are produced by our thyroid. So the thyroid is a hormone that needs ingredients such as vitamins and minerals and cholesterol, dietary fat, produce the hormones before that, which is the pregnenolone with the progesterone from the adrenal cortex making DHEA. That goes down to the thyroid, mixes with iodine and then selenium and other elements to balance the immune system and also balance the digestive system. So what we put in as our ingredients are having a cascading effect down on what kind of chemical interactions are happening in our body. So yeah, that hormone chart is in my presentation called Amplify Your Frequency. So the tongue analysis and the ama, I discussed this in my tongue reading presentation. Ama is meaning toxins produced by undigested food and emotions. So a toxic, sticky, cloudy, smelly substance that can spread from the gastrointestinal tract to other parts of the body. Ama for improper digestion. It's responsible for 90% of disease. So the ama is often produced, as I said, from the digestive dysfunction, and it can sink down to the intestines, the reproductive organs. If it's in the reproductive organs, there might be some, tumors or growths or cysts or fibrotic type things. And then if it's going up to the lungs, it's going to be lung congestion, therefore you can't breathe enough oxygen, and on it goes. And so here's a tongue with the 6 flavors, and that's why in Ayurveda they like to include all of the flavors in a meal, because then you're stimulating all of the parts of the tongue where these flavors are recognized to then start producing the amylase, which is a pre-digestive effect that happens on the tongue to chemically break down the food. So when you swallow it, it's already started digesting. And here you can learn more about this in my tongue reading presentation. But this is when you put your tongue out in the morning and you've got a layer of stickiness. Hopefully not, but most people will. That's the toxins that have collected on your tongue while you're sleeping, while your body's cleaning itself while you sleep. And that should be scraped off because you don't want to swallow that because it's ama, it's toxins. But before you do that, you can compare where the ama is sitting on your tongue, and you will be able to see that you've got your internal organ landscape. So if you've got a collection of ama down the back of your tongue here, it's showing that all the toxins are collecting in the intestines in the lower region, the vata region. Or if your ama is sitting all up here, it's in the kapha region. You've got to imagine that this tongue is like that, but if you flip it up the other way, you've got the upper, the middle, and the lower region. So it's the kapha, the pitta, and the vata. But when you put it out, it's going to be upside down. So that means you've got the vata, the pitta, and the kapha, which are the organs related in this chart and on the previous chart. So if you've got ama up on the top here, it could be some congestion in the lungs and the heart. So it's a really good way to start inspecting yourself for free every day. And so rasas, that is meaning flavors. So the 6 flavors. And they all do certain actions. They all have effects in the body. So the sour is cleaning the tissues, increasing absorption of minerals. And so sour flavor, you're going to get it from fruit, sour fruits, yogurt, fermented food. And all of these flavors have an effect on the dosha. So a sour flavor will decrease vata, so it means that the vata level will be reduced. It increases pitta, so it makes pitta dosha stronger, and it also increases kapha. So in that case, if you have a vata type problem, like your mind is too active, you're running around, too many ideas, you just can't concentrate, you're too flighty. So that means your vata has gone too much. If you have some sour, it can kind of bring the vata back down under control again. And then reversely, if your pitta is not enough, meaning that your fire perhaps is a bit weak, your digestion's a bit weak, you can increase the sour, and that's going to consume the sour, and that's going to increase your pitta because it's increasing the absorption of minerals, and that's called cellular nutrient absorption, which is a part of digestion. Salty improves taste, lubricates tissues, stimulates digestion. Natural salts and sea vegetables are where we can get those from. So the salty is doing these actions on the doshas. It's decreasing the vata, increasing the pitta and the kapha. So it's doing the same. And then astringent's like that kind of dry flavor, like the pith on the banana or toothpaste. It's sucking moisture out. It's actually taking the moisture out of your mouth. So it's absorbing water, tightens tissues, dries the fat, and we get that from legumes, raw fruits, vegetables, and herbs. And then pungent, which is like pepper, chili, stimulates digestion and metabolism because it's warming, it's heating, it's like opening the blood vessels and dilating them so more circulation can happen on the organs and the blood vessels. And so you'll find that in chili peppers, garlic, herbs, and spices. And then Bitter, so that's detoxifying and lightening the tissues, dark leafy greens, herbs and spices. And then sweet, builds the tissues, calms the nerves, fruit, grains, natural sugars and milk. So this is like the basic starting point for food balancing. So the goal is to balance the body, the mind, the soul with the physical, mental, emotional, diet and lifestyle practices. So how do we do that? Looking. So determine prakriti. So if you remember what is the word prakriti meaning, it's meaning the balanced state. So there's many prakriti dosha quiz you can take online. I will put a link in the description below with the best website I've found for this. This is not from it, but it's the same kind of questions all the time. So you've got Vata, Pitta, Kapha. You've got a little box where you would tick. This is like an old school way of tick the box and then count it up. Now they have a lot of websites that are doing like a digital calculation for you, and then they just like email it back. You don't have to do it yourself. But it is slightly subjective. Frame, weight, eyes, complexion, hair, joints, sleep pattern, body temperature, temperament, under stress. That's a few of the questions. There's generally, I mean, sometimes up to about 30. And then you would just tick the most appropriate box. So frame, I am thin, lanky and slender with prominent joints and thin muscles. Or I have a medium symmetrical build with good muscle development. Or I have a large, round or stocky build. My frame is broad, stout or thick. So that one should be pretty obvious. For me, obviously, I'm the lanky one, so I would tick that. And then this is where, like, if I'm going to use myself as an example, I've done a lot of these dosha quizzes. Even though I've got a lot of Vata physical characteristics in my body frame, I've actually got quite big eyes and big eyelashes. So I have Kapha facial features inside a Vata body frame. And then my hair is abundant and thick, but it's also a little bit ginger. So then I'd be like, which one is more predominant? And I'd probably choose the thick quality, because I'm not full redhead. So you kind of have to be able to discern a little bit, like which one is the more one closest to what you were born with. So then a lot of these dosha quizzes, they're combining prakriti questions and vikruti imbalance questions. So this is a different type of questionnaire where they're asking you to circle which best fits you. But as I said before, there's a lot of other online quizzes where you just multi-choice and they'll email it back to you. It's best to do quite a few though, because depending on the question and how they're measuring, you might get different readings, but they're generally going to come out about the same. So this is the Vata one, so you'd go down in this particular questionnaire and you would circle, and then the practitioner is obviously going to manually transcribe that information. And then, so for example, if you had 5 things on this list, 10 things on this list, and 7 things on this list, you'd be probably 50% Pitta, and then like, what would be the rest? 30% Kapha, 20% Vata, something like that is your vikruti. That's your imbalance, which is different to the natural prakriti. So what you would do then, which is what the websites will do for you, is that they'll have, here's your prakriti, so here's your normal constitution. So it might be, as I said, you're 50% Pitta, you're 30% Kapha and your 20% Vata. That's your normal. Then they'll give you a second reading, and that reading might show that your Pitta is at 35%, your Kapha is at maybe 40%, and then the rest is Vata. So that is showing essentially that your normal Pitta should be 50%, but at the moment it's 40%. So that means your Pitta would need to be leveled up. You need to stimulate your Pitta, you need to increase your Pitta to come back to what your original normal was, which is your 50% constitution that you're born with. And then in the Kapha, because the Pitta's gone down, the Kapha's actually taken up too much space. Where it was 30%, now it's at 40%. So your Kapha in that mix would have to be reduced. So you're choosing foods that would do two things: increase the Pitta and reduce the Kapha. So how do you know what foods to eat to do that? First, it's a really good idea to figure out what your normal routine is. What do you normally eat? Because after you've got your basics of what you normally like to eat, then you're going to use that information for comparing it to the food charts, where you'll be like, oh, well, I can't eat that because I'm allergic, or I don't want to eat that because I don't like it. So you want to figure out. And also, so here's a really basic chart I've made actually on my, if you subscribe on my website, I'll send you a better one that I've made recently. This is just for pure example reasons, really. But what you want to do, this is an analysis from Monday to Sunday, and you've got, in the one I've created, I've done it much more space for writing. This is just an example. So you're going to be having a look at your exercise, including the times, what you did, what your mood was, your energy levels, all of that. Breakfast time, what time did you eat it? What did you eat? How much? Were you hungry? Did you have an appetite? Were you hangry? What did you have for snacks, including the times, cravings, what flavors are you craving? Because if you're craving a lot of sweet or sugar, are you craving salty? Are you craving sour? Are you craving bitter? It's going to give you an insight into what elements are maybe imbalanced. And then lunch, snacks, dinner and snacks. Also adding onto this on the one that I've updated, cravings. How is your bowel and your bladder going? So did you urinate? Did you not? How often? What color was it? Was there any difficulty? Same with the bowels. Did you have a bowel movement? Did you not? Was there any pain or difficulty? Was there smell? Was that undigested food? This is where it gets really interesting for your own body inspection, because when I first started studying this, obviously I'd never done this inspection before, so you're going to have to get used to looking in the toilet, because what goes in does come out. And if you can know both ends of the cycle, then you're going to have a great insight into, oh, well, on Monday I ate all of this rich food. I went to a degustation and I ate like 20 different types of meat. And then by Wednesday, if I look back in my journal, I still haven't had a bowel movement. Oh. And you always forget what you've done 2 days ago. So if you look back and you go, oh, it's because I ate all that stuff and I'm obviously still digesting it, and I ate too much to digest, I've got a weak Pitta, then you're able to be like, oh, okay, so I have to start eliminating some of that. I've got to increase my Pitta by introducing these foods. And then once you start doing that, by next week or whatever, you'll be looking at your bowel observations. Oh, it's all starting to flow and function once a day in the morning, no problems, fully formed, no undigested food, and then you know that you've recorrected it yourself. Sleeping, obviously, dreams, how much water are you drinking, exercise, and then all of the other stuff which you can add in. You can create your own, but if you want the template, just send me an email. And then this is just a little chart to show some balances. Is there an excess or deficiency of Vata, Pitta, Kapha? Each dosha can be individually rebalanced with diet, lifestyle, and herbs. So, I mean, this chart, you could interpret it as Prakriti or Vikruti. This might be a Vata predominant person with a little bit more Kapha than Pitta, and so that might be their normal. Or it could be the reading from their Vikruti, which means their whatever the Prakriti was, the Vata's at that level, and then you'd have to compare the two charts together. So knowing your anatomy, knowing where your organs are and what they do is actually really handy. If only we'd been taught that at school. So obviously you've got your brain up here, you've got your esophagus and airway, you've got your lungs here, you've got your heart here. Out of the heart flows the veins and the arteries. The arteries send oxygenated blood through the entire body to deliver nutrients and oxygen. Then when that's all run out, it returns through the venous system back to the heart, and then the lungs breathe oxygen in. That gets put back into the blood supply to return to the arterial system to then deliver oxygen and nutrients. So that's a flow system. And then under the heart, just slightly off to the side, your stomach lives in there. So this is above your belly button. Your stomach is not down below your belly button. Your stomach is actually just under between the ribs, the bottom of the ribs. Obviously, the stomach is the digestive fire, the Agni, and when you put food in your mouth, it goes down and then it gets digested in the stomach. The spleen is on this side. It's an accessory organ to the stomach to produce nutrients from the food. The liver's on this side with the gallbladder underneath. So the liver is digestive organ as well as the gallbladder, which puts bile into the stomach for helping digestion. The liver is also a detoxifying organ, so our lymphatic system flows toxins into the liver, and the toxins get filtered through the liver. And in Chinese medicine, the liver is actually responsible for distribution of the blood, and the blood is produced in the digestive system. Some of it gets sent up, well, it gets sent up to the heart, circulate. Then once that process has happened, it's also kept in the liver like a wet sponge, and the liver starts distributing it. And they have said that in the wrong order. Then what's down here? You've got, so the stomach joins onto the small intestines, so that's all that squiggly around. And the small intestine's job is whatever didn't get processed through the stomach, if the stomach chucked out some food particles that it decided were not needed as nutrients, they get a second go at being filtered, and the small intestine essentially sorts the usable from the not usable. And the usable will get absorbed through the wall of the small intestine and reabsorbed back into the bloodstream to be usable nutrients. And the unusable, it goes round and round, and then it joins onto the large intestine, and it starts getting processed as a waste product. And then it goes around here, comes out the colon and rectum as stool as a waste product. So that's the basic function. There was a bit of a mashup between Western and Chinese. There's always different perspectives to look at things. But essentially, the digestive system is where we produce blood. And what is blood made from? It's made from the food we eat. And why is blood so important? Is because it sends nutrients to our entire body. So keeping the digestive system function awesome means you're going to have a full nutrient delivery system as traveling through the blood. So how does Ayurveda balance life? Diet, lifestyle, herbs. Mostly, it's what I learned in the first year. In harmony with nature, you want to be balancing. So this is an Ayurvedic clock showing the times. So Pitta, Vata, Kapha, Pitta, Vata, Kapha. times of the day that those regions of the body will be more active. And here you've got the sun, the day turning to dusk, turning to night, turning to the morning, going around. And then you've got different activities that you should be doing in this hours of the day. So when your pitta is high, you want to, you're in this section here, so you're planning, you're organizing, you're taking action. 12 noon, you are eating the heaviest meal of the day because you've got a highest metabolism. And then after 2 p.m. to 6 p.m., this is when vata is becoming more predominant. You can do, your metabolism's getting high, you can do movement, communication, socializing in your last meal of the day. Because vata is wind and air, it's all about movement, so you can embrace that at that time. You don't need to be in your mind. Here's the mind part of the day. Here's the body movement part of the day. Dusk after 6 p.m., getting on towards 10 p.m. So you're calming down, you're going into the kapha, more stable, more slow, more solid, quiet time. Assimilating, slowing down, preparing for sleep, going within. And then this pitta time at midnight, deep sleep, deep assimilation and transformation, dreams and color, subconscious action. Then after 2 a.m. to 6, it's coming back into the vata time. So the vata is the waking up energy. Light sleep, elimination begins, meditating, visualizing, creating. So in an Ayurvedic lifestyle, people are getting up, between 4 and 5 a.m. to do the meditation. So you're actually getting up at this time. And then the dawn rises. So kapha, you can do some exercise, a light meal. You start your elimination processes, start preparing for the day, gathering energy. So it's a gentle, kapha, placid, calm start. And then once you rev up, you're back into pitta time. So if you can balance your lifestyle in this harmony with the sun and the moon cycle, you're going to be able to balance your doshas more easily because you're now in harmony with the external force, and then you're blending or harmonizing your internal forces with the external forces, and then it's going to be a lot easier to be in a relationship with nature. So following nature's cycles, and then meal balancing. So that's the representation of the 6 flavors up there. Here's a representation of the 5 elements. So we've got air, water, ether, earth, and fire. So to do it easily, you can just cook tridoshic, which means an equal balance of herbs, spices that are happy for all doshas. So cumin, cardamom, and coriander, they call them the 3 C's. Those 3 spices will balance all these elements. So they're really like safe go-tos for balancing all the doshas. And also if you're cooking for a group of people, and obviously everyone's got a different dosha type, you can use those 3 and everyone's going to be balanced. So you're going to be using spices. You want to balance the 6 tastes and the 20 qualities. You can use spices, condiments, or particular ingredients or foods according to the Ayurvedic food principles. So this is when cooking becomes art. So this is from a website that I'm going to link. This is the one that's got the really cool Prakruti Vikruti quiz. And they've got a really comprehensive everything about Ayurveda and other holistic therapies. But this is just one page out of their food classifications information chart. So you can see here, they've got meat, dairy, oils, sweeteners, legumes, vegetables, fruits, herbs, spices, grains, seeds, and nuts. So if you click on either one of those, you're going to come up with a list like this. So this one is for vegetables, and you've got a list of all these vegetables down the side. So beetroot, broccoli, cabbage, carrot, blah, blah. And then you've got the taste. So the taste, the beets have a flavor. Taste is flavor. Flavor of sweet. Broccoli has sweet and astringent. On and on and on it goes. So when you go back and be like, oh yeah, I love eating broccoli, I love eating beetroot, I do that all the time, then you can make a note and you go back to that other chart where it's describing the action of the flavors on the doshas. You can start seeing the correspondence, because if you're eating a lot of sweet, you'll know that that is increasing Pitta. And so the next classification is it heating or cooling? So some things, obviously, like chili is heating. Some things like mint or coriander or aloe vera is cooling. So if you're too hot, you can favor cooling foods. But if you're cold all the time, you want to avoid the cooling foods and just maybe choose more warm foods. And then there's a post-digestive effect. So this can often change from the first flavor. So the first flavor is what you taste on the tongue. And then after you process the food, it can often transform its chemical action to a different flavor. So if you want to go back to that chart of the flavors and you can see the chemical action inside the body, you can get a bit more scientific with this. And then the properties and action on the doshas. So this is a really important part to know. So the beetroot, it's heavy, smooth. So that's the qualities, the gunas. So that would actually very much balance vata because it's heavy. Vata's light. So if you want to bring your vata back down from the sky down to the ground. And smooth balances rough, which is also a vata quality. So it's helping to really earth, airy vata type. Relieving anemia, probably because it's very red. So it's a red blood color. So it's good for making blood in the body. It may increase pitta and kapha when taken in excess. And it, as I said, it decreases the vata. So you've just got to be careful with that one. If you start overeating beets, you might notice that your pitta, when pitta's increased, it's generally going to the heat aspect. And when kapha's increased, because beet, when you think about the texture of beet, and because one of the guna qualities is heavy is a quality of kapha. So if you overuse heavy, it can actually aggravate kapha. And that means the kapha is getting too much kapha. It's called an aggravation of the dosha. So you want to reduce kapha back to balance. So you're going to take out some of the heavy qualities. There might be some of the foods that you've combined are all heavy qualities. And you'll be like, oh, I've just like totally aggravated my kapha. So you can like remove some of the heavy qualities and maybe add in a spice that's balancing kapha. You can get really into this diet herb spice conversation. So yeah, you can obviously see that's quite a lot of stuff that you're going to be able to play around with. So it is an art, it is a science, and it's really fun. So obviously, other than diet, we've got exercises. So the vata person, because their qualities are fast and airy and talkative and all over the shop, they need to slow down and keep warm. So you want to choose an exercise that is helping you do that. So possibly a slow type of yoga, maybe a warming type of yoga, oils that you would choose, warming type oils. Pitta needs to cool down, so you don't want to have a Pitta aggravated person going and doing Bikram yoga, because they're already hot. You put them in a hot environment, they heat up too much, they lose all their sweat, and so their fire and water balance is going to get really out of whack because they've sweated out the little moisture that they do have. That's a really uncool thing to do for Pitta. And then Kapha, they need to get active. So, you might want to do some Ashtanga yoga, and maybe a bit of, light aerobics or lymphatic drainage, and jumping on the trampoline or skipping or something that really moves the body a lot more. So that's kind of the opposite of Vata. Vata people, because they're always up in the mind, they need to be more in the body. And because the Kapha people are more in the body, they need to move the body more. So there's also different Ayurvedic body therapies designed to do different things for different doshas with different oils, different herbs. Here you've got the Shirodhara therapy, which is pouring warm oil and trickling it on the third eye. So that's for calming the mind. Then there's obviously massage, reflexology massage with oil. That's sesame oil. It's been warmed, always using warm oil on the body. And there's a table with different oils and spices. You can do body steaming, dry body brushing, oil massage. When I learned this, we did a 10-day retreat, and every morning we had to get warm sesame oil and then massage all of our body, the hair and everything, and then let that kind of settle for 15 minutes and then go wash it all off. And then we went in to do our yoga practice, things like that. So yeah, you have to kind of Google around about these different therapies, but depending on the Prakriti and the Vikruti, different therapies at different times are most favorable, as are different oils. So coconut oil is generally used for cooling the body down, so that's for cooling down Pitta. And then sesame oil is more warming in nature, so that's always used for Vata and Kapha type people because they're prone to getting too cold. So yeah, that's the end of that. It's just kind of an overview, so help to get you started on, what it's, what's the point of it all, and then what are some ways that you can use it for yourself. I really recommend doing the self-analysis with the daily journal, and then doing a dosha quiz, and that's enough to get you kind of, with this information, how to start choosing foods and herbs and spices to balance your digestive system and the rest of your body, mind and soul. So yeah, if you want to find, if you email me through the website, I'll send you that journal. And then, yeah, that's my Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube is Anaya Science Witch. So, yeah, that's the end. I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.